There are certain scents. You only need to catch them once, and an entire world of memories suddenly returns. For me, it is the scent of freshly cut rice straw, the warmth of sunlight still clinging to the stalks, the smell of dry earth, the sweat of the adults working nearby, and the faint smoke rising from the far end of the fields at dusk. So many years have passed. I have traveled through many places, but whenever the scent of straw reaches me on some quiet afternoon, I see myself again, a barefoot little boy, running along a narrow village path. Ahead of me is my father, my mother, and familiar neighbors, walking slowly toward the rice fields. Back then, I thought I was following everyone into a season of joy. I did not know it would also be the first time I truly saw how hard the people who raised me had worked.
That morning, I woke before the sky was fully light. In the courtyard, Father was sharpening his sickle. Mother wrapped our lunch in an old cloth, filled a bottle with water, and took her worn conical hat down from the wall. Everyone had something to do, everyone except me, so I kept running around, first carrying a basket, then insisting I could carry the water. I wanted to prove that I was finally old enough to come along. When Mother said yes, I was so excited, I nearly forgot breakfast. I imagined running through endless golden fields, riding on a cart piled high with straw, playing with the other children from the village. I did not know then that some journeys begin with the excitement of a child and end with that child quietly growing a little inside. The sun climbed quickly. It was still morning, but heat was already rising from the field. Father bent low, cutting one handful of rice after another. Mother followed behind him, gathering the stalks and tying them into bundles. I tried to keep up, but before long, my legs grew tired. The straw scratched my skin. Sweat ran into my eyes and stung. I finally stopped beneath the little shade of a tree and looked across the field. That was the first time I noticed the back of Mother's shirt, completely soaked with sweat. She bent down, stood up, then bent down again, one bundle after another. As a child, I simply thought my mother was strong, that she could work forever, without ever getting tired. Only when I grew older did I understand. It was not that she never felt tired, it was that behind her were children waiting to be fed. Everyone was busy, so I asked Father to give me a job too. He did not hand me the sickle. Instead, he pointed to the loose rice stalks scattered across the field. "Pick those up for me," he said. "Don't let a single grain go to waste." So I bent down and began gathering them one by one. At first, it felt like a game, but after a while, my back began to ache. My hands started to itch. I wanted to leave and go play somewhere else. Then I remembered Father's words, "Don't let a single grain go to waste." Many years later, I finally understood why Mother always picked up the grains of rice that fell onto the table. Why no one in our home was allowed to leave rice uneaten. To a child, it was only one grain of rice. But to my parents, inside that grain was a season of sun, a season of rain, and countless days spent bending over a field. Noon, our family rested beneath a tree at the edge of the field. Mother opened the lunch she had packed that morning. There was only cold rice, a little sesame salt, a few pieces of braised fish, and some vegetables, already softened by the heat. Yet somehow, that meal tasted wonderful. Maybe because I was hungry, or maybe because, in the middle of such a wide field, simply sitting beside my parents made even the simplest meal feel warm. After we ate, Mother spread an old shirt on the grass for me. I lay down and quickly fell asleep. Before returning to work, she lowered her conical hat to shade my face from the sun. I slept peacefully. I had no idea that while one person was working beneath the hot sun, she was still worried that even one small ray of light might disturb her sleeping child. By afternoon, the field was alive with voices calling to one another. A family that finished early would move over to help one that had not. Someone tied the rice into bundles. Someone pulled the cart. Someone gathered the last stalks before darkness came. One person brought more water. Another arrived with a basket of boiled sweet potatoes and shared them across the field. No one asked how much they had already helped that day. No one kept track of who owed whom a day's labor. In the village where I grew up, people lived close to one another for more than the simple reason that their houses stood side by side. When one family had work to finish, the whole neighborhood somehow felt it belonged to them too. Later in life, we may live among thousands of people and still feel alone. And then we remember there was once a time when all you had to do was call across a rice field and someone from the other side would answer. That evening, my legs ached. My hands were red from the sharp edges of the straw. Mother washed the mud from them and rubbed a little oil onto the sore places. Father walked past and noticed the small bundle of rice I had gathered that day. He placed his hand on my head. "You helped us today," he said. "You're growing up." It was such an ordinary sentence. Father probably forgot it soon after, but I never did, because for a child, there are days when growing up has nothing to do with becoming 1 year older. Sometimes, it happens the first time. An adult looks at you and lets you know that your small hands can carry a little of the family's burden too. And sometimes, a father's few quiet words become something his child carries for the rest of his life. When I was little, I believed Father was endlessly strong. He could carry enormous bundles of rice, pull a heavy cart, walk across the entire field, and never seemed tired. I thought Mother would always move just as quickly, bending down, tying another bundle, then turning back to call me home for dinner. In the same familiar voice, children often believe their parents will always be there, that home will always be there, that every harvest season will return exactly as it did before. Only when we grow older do we begin to notice Father's steps have become slower, Mother's hands have become thinner. Some people are still beside us, but they no longer look the way they do in our memories. And some people we can only meet again when the scent of fresh straw suddenly passes through the air. Now, whenever I see a steaming bowl of rice on the table, I do not see only white grains. I see an old rice field. I see Father bent beneath the sun. I see Mother wiping sweat away with her sleeve. I see Grandmother sitting beside the harvested bundles. And I see a child picking up fallen rice stalks, one by one. When I was young, I thought rice was simply something that appeared on the table every day. When it was gone, Mother cooked more. There seemed to be nothing special about it. Only as an adult did I understand that many things we once considered ordinary were made possible by years of someone else's hard work. Perhaps that is why I still find it difficult to leave even a little rice behind. Not only because wasting food feels wrong, but because in every grain, I can still see the people who once loved us with the labor of their entire lives. Many years have passed. The field from that year may look completely different now. The narrow path leading there may have become wider. The old sickles may have been replaced by machines. But in my memory, that harvest remains unchanged. Not because the rice was more golden that year, not because lunch in the field tasted better, but because in that field, there was father, there was mother, there were familiar people, bending beneath the sun, so that their children could grow up with enough food on the table. Perhaps, what we remember most about childhood is never only the place, it is the people who once stood inside that place with us. Do you remember a harvest season from your childhood? Or is there someone who returns to you whenever you smell fresh straw? That harvest season was not always filled with golden sunlight. There were afternoons when bundles of rice still lay across the field, and the sky suddenly turned dark. Wind rushed through the trees. The adults hurried to bring everything in, but we children looked up at the sky with excitement, waiting for the first drops to fall. Because childhood was like that. After all those days of sun, the rain could arrive without warning and become another memory we would carry for years. See you in episode 12, The Sudden Rain of Childhood, and Winseo, Childhood Memories, where the things we thought were gone still remain.